In a narrow limestone canyon straddling the Arizona-Sonora border, a small, unassuming cactus grows nowhere else on Earth. Coryphantha robbinsorum is barely the size of a fist, easy to miss among the surrounding rock and scrub, and it's listed as threatened, its entire known range confined to a handful of isolated limestone outcrops. Cacti in general are known for producing unusually concentrated pigments and antioxidant compounds, an adaptation to some of the harshest ultraviolet light exposure any plant on Earth has to survive. But what if one of these small, overlooked desert survivors carried a pigment relevant to a very different kind of light exposure, the kind the human eye absorbs every day at the exact spot where central vision lives? This is the story of a rare, little-known cactus and a thought experiment about macular degeneration, retinal pigment, and the limits of what current medicine can protect and repair. Coryphantha robbinsorum, sometimes called the Cochise pincushion cactus, is a small globe-shaped cactus documented almost exclusively within a narrow band of limestone habitat near the Arizona-Sonora border. It was formally listed as a threatened species under U.S. endangered species protections, largely due to its extremely limited range and vulnerability to habitat disturbance, collection, and mining activity in the region where it grows. This part of the story is well documented, a real, legally recognized threatened cactus species confined to one of the smallest known ranges of any cactus in North America. Cacti as a broader plant family are well known among botanists for producing unusually high concentrations of protective pigments, particularly betalains, the vivid red, purple, and yellow compounds responsible for the intense coloration seen in many cactus fruits and flowers. These pigments serve a real documented biological function, protecting plant tissue from the intense ultraviolet radiation and oxidative stress common in desert environments, functioning as some of the most potent natural antioxidants identified in the plant kingdom. Botanists studying the Cactaceae family have noted that species confined to extremely narrow geographic ranges like Coryphantha robbinsorum often show unusually specialized adaptations compared to their more widespread relatives, precisely because a narrow range typically means a narrow, consistent set of environmental pressures to adapt to, generation after generation, without the genetic mixing a wider-ranging population would experience. That specialization can make rare, narrow-range species like this one particularly interesting to chemists and pharmacologists, even though it also makes them especially vulnerable to extinction the moment their small habitat is disturbed. Here's what's genuinely true, separate from anything imagined in this video, and its important context for the rest of the story. The macula, the small central region of the retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision, contains its own specialized protective pigments, lutein and zeaxanthin, carotenoid compounds the body cannot produce on its own and must obtain through diet. These pigments are real, well-studied, and genuinely believed to help protect retinal cells from oxidative damage caused by light exposure over a lifetime, which is part of why leafy green vegetables, corn, and egg yolks, all natural sources of these compounds, are commonly recommended as part of an eye-healthy diet, and why lutein and zeaxanthin are included in the AREDS2 formula, a specific vitamin combination clinically studied and shown to modestly slow progression in certain stages of age-related macular degeneration. This is real, established nutritional and ophthalmological science. What's speculative is whether a completely different class of plant pigment, the betalains found in cacti like Coryphantha robbinsorum, structurally unrelated to lutein and zeaxanthin, might have any comparable protective relevance to retinal health. No confirmed research currently connects cactus betalains to macular protection in this way. This context matters because it means the core premise of tonight's story sits on top of real, well-established retinal pigment science, even though the specific plant connection this video explores is speculative. It's worth being clear about how much is already known and available in this space, separate from anything imagined in this video. The AREDS2 study, a large, real, government-funded clinical trial, specifically tested a formula containing lutein, zeaxanthin, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, and copper, and found it modestly reduced the risk of progression to advanced AMD in people already showing intermediate signs of the disease. That's a genuinely useful evidence-based tool available today, prescribed by real ophthalmologists, a meaningfully different situation from the purely speculative cactus pigment story this video builds on top of it. This is explicitly a thought experiment. Nothing in this chapter describes an actual study, compound, or discovery that currently exists. Imagine, for the sake of the story, that researchers analyzing Coryphantha robbinsorum's fruit pigmentation, motivated purely by curiosity about its unusually intense coloration for such a small cactus, identified a distinctive betalain variant with an unusually high antioxidant capacity in laboratory testing. Imagine that, out of general scientific interest, an ophthalmology research lab tested this compound against cultured retinal pigment epithelial cells, the specialized support cells beneath the retina that are central to macular degeneration research, and observed early narrow signs of reduced oxidative stress markers under laboratory conditions designed to mimic light-induced retinal cell damage. And imagine that finding generated genuine interest among vision researchers, not because it suggested a cure for macular degeneration, but because it pointed toward a mechanism worth years of further laboratory and animal study, sitting alongside the anti-VEGF therapies, gene therapies, and nutritional research already being pursued through legitimate, ongoing macular degeneration research programs. That is as far as the imagined story goes. In this thought experiment, exactly as in real ophthalmology research, an early cell culture signal would be many years and multiple research phases away from anything resembling a human treatment, and would not, at any point along that path, mean a real person with vision changes should delay an eye exam or an existing treatment plan. It's worth explaining plainly why this condition deserves particular care and how a story like this gets told. Age-related macular degeneration comes in two broad forms. The dry form progresses gradually, and its progression can sometimes be modestly slowed through diet, the AREDS2 vitamin formula, and lifestyle changes like not smoking. The wet form, however, involves abnormal blood vessel growth beneath the retina that can leak fluid and cause rapid, sometimes severe vision loss within days to weeks if left untreated. Wet AMD is currently treated with anti-VEGF injections directly into the eye, a real and effective treatment when started promptly, but one where delay can mean the difference between preserved vision and permanent, irreversible central vision loss. That means even a genuine future breakthrough in retinal protective pigments, the kind real vision researchers are actively investigating today through legitimate carotenoid and antioxidant research, would take years of clinical trials before reaching patients. A plant discovery, real or imagined, would be no exception to that timeline, and nothing in this video should be read as a reason to delay a routine eye exam, ignore sudden vision changes, or skip a scheduled anti-VEGF treatment. Macular degeneration is also notable for how often it goes unnoticed in its earliest stages, since one eye can often compensate for gradual changes in the other, meaning a person may not realize anything has changed until vision loss has already become significant. This is exactly why ophthalmologists recommend regular dilated eye exams for adults over 50 or younger if there's a family history, rather than waiting for symptoms to appear before scheduling a first screening. If you've noticed blurring, distortion, or a blind spot in your central vision, or you've been told you have any stage of macular degeneration, please don't wait for a future breakthrough, plant-based or otherwise, before seeking care. This entire episode is built around real, well-established retinal pigment science, wrapped around a speculative what-if story about a rare cactus that hasn't actually been studied this way. Real progress in macular degeneration treatment is being pursued seriously through anti-VEGF therapy, gene therapy trials, and nutritional research. And when something real does emerge, it will reach patients through an ophthalmologist and years of clinical trials, not through a video about a small desert cactus. This isn't a disclaimer added out of caution alone. It's the most important sentence in this script. Sudden vision changes, especially straight lines appearing wavy or a new blind spot, deserve same-week medical attention, and no plant, rare or newly studied, is a substitute for that care. Set the speculation aside, and there's still something genuinely worth sitting with. Coryphantha robbinsorum's survival strategy, producing intensely concentrated protective pigments to endure some of the harshest sunlight exposure any organism faces, is a real and remarkable example of evolutionary chemistry solving a light damage problem. Coincidentally, a category of problem not entirely unlike the one the human macula faces over a lifetime of light exposure, even though the biological systems involved are entirely different. There's real ongoing scientific value in studying how desert plants like this one chemically survive constant UV exposure, independent of any speculative human health connection, both for what it might one day teach us about protective pigment biology in general, and simply because a plant this rare, confined to such a small known range, deserves to be understood and protected before it's gone. Coryphantha robbinsorum may never turn out to hold anything close to what this story imagines about vision protection, but its real talent for surviving extreme light exposure through concentrated natural pigment is worth understanding on its own merit. And for anyone noticing changes in their vision today, the most important step isn't waiting on an unstudied desert cactus, it's calling an ophthalmologist, because with macular degeneration, time itself is often the difference between vision preserved and vision lost. Somewhere between a small pincushion cactus surviving on a single limestone outcrop in a retina research lab, there may genuinely be something worth discovering, but until that discovery is real, tested, and approved, the eye's best protection remains the same one it's always had: regular exams and prompt attention to any change.